So welcome to May's project, which I've done a little switcheroo in terms of our schedule because I am working on the birds that I can hear in the garden, and I'm using an app called the Merlin app. I don't know if you've used it yet, but you can download it on your phone, press record, and it listens to the bird song and it identifies the birds around you, so you could do it in your garden, when you're out for a walk, in your favourite place, that kind of thing. And I was thinking it was a really lovely way to personalise our painting this month. And with that, I've created a scene with the birds from my garden, which you are very welcome to copy identically, and that might be the easiest thing to get you going. Or you might want to make it personal to you and pick a favourite spot or your garden or a park that you walk in and record the bird song, and try and record it a few different times of the day so you just get a good list, and then you will be able to look for a reference for those birds and build your collage from there. I've let me show you actually. So we're working on an A2 piece of cartridge paper, maybe bigger than me this month, and this is the usual cartridge paper I'm working on, and there's about 7 stages to this project, so it's quite involved and it makes a lot of mess, fair warning now. What I've done is I'll show you some screenshots of the bird app working from my garden and the phone, and it identifies those birds, and then I've looked for a reference for those birds, and then I've created a palette sheet for you, so it's nice and easy to copy identically this one. But if you do want to make it your own, then you'll need to look for those other references of other birds that you might have that I might not have. And it's quite handy looking at the colour palette, because that will help you build your collage papers for which you're going to make your birds up with. This is definitely a have a scroll through and get a sense of what I'm doing project, and you can break it into several stages over several days. And I've had to write down the stages just to remind myself. So first of all, you're going to make the base of the tree. So this tree here, we're going to mask it out with masking fluid, and if you haven't worked with masking fluid before, it basically blocks out and creates like a rubber seal wherever you block, and then whatever paint you put on top, it protects it, and it's very easy to rub away and then bring the white back. So everything that you see here on the tree that's white, that has been painted with masking fluid first of all. Then that takes a little while to dry, like half an hour, 40 minutes. So set it to one side and you can crack on with making your collage papers. And this is where you're making lots of different marks. So go on a little treasure hunt around the house, finding things that you can stamp, scratch, mark with, not just a paintbrush, but things that can sort of create really interesting textures for you. So, and it might be that you build them up in layers, and you'll see from the video that I made about 6 or 7 different colours, and it actually saw me through. I thought I'd need a lot more than that. So have a look at those colour palettes and see and identify which collage colours that you need to make up. Find things that you can scrape, scratch and apply paint on with. Get your colour pencils out, get your wax crayons out, steal your kids' felt tip pens, and make colour swatches, and try and get a dark and a medium and a light of each of those colours. So if I was making a yellow sheet, I'd look for a dark yellow, a medium yellow and a light yellow. And it's nice to mix the temperatures as well, so look for cool yellows and warm yellows so you can really mix it up. I noticed I made a lot of warm yellows and oranges thinking about the robin, but when it came to the blue tits, they have like a bluey yellow, a greeny yellow, so I had to quickly add a bit of that particular colder yellow to my collage papers as I was working through it. Once you've made your collage papers, so your tree and your collage papers are probably one session, and then let all that dry. And then you come to paint the background of your tree. So can you see this sort of olivey green I've got here? I used 2 different types of emulsion paint, and they're just tester pots that I was nearly running out of, and it was a good excuse to squidge the rest of them up and use it all up. And actually the colour worked really well. So have a look for those. They're about a couple of quid, and I really love the tooth that they give you, that, you know, it has, the paint sits on the paper, it gives you a lovely tooth to work on, so when you're working on top with oils or oil pastels or colour crayons, it grabs it so much easier. Then you want to collage your birds. Now, how many have I got? I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 birds. It took me a while to create those 9 birds. So again, that might be another session that you sit down and think, right, my collage paper's dry, I'm going to make these collage birds now. And it's once you get into the groove of making them, you can do a few at the same time. Then you want to place your birds on the tree. So you can play around with the composition. It doesn't have to match mine. This rook looked really huge in the tree, so I popped it down in the foreground, and I quite like how I've just brought out the claw coming over the border there. It kind of breaks the frame a little bit in a very subtle way. So once those birds are placed and stuck down, I'm just using basic Pritt stick. Then you can start to hand embellish the tree, and you've got an idea, dependent on how many birds you're doing, as to how much you want to embellish that tree. You don't want the tree to overshadow the birds, because it's all about the birds. The tree is like the accessory, the frame that holds the birds. So just a little subtle pop of colour where you'll see, I've kind of suggested that it might be like a magnolia tree or something, or maybe it could be blossom, and I've just put a little pop of oil pastel pink in there, and that pink is popping perfectly against that olive green. That was unintentional, but I'm really pleased about that. And then once you've done that, you have that very satisfying job of peeling back the border. Take your time doing that. Peel it back on itself very slowly, and don't pull it up, because that's when you will rip, and don't pull it away, because that's when you will rip. Pull it close to the paper and wind it back, and that way you should have the most success at a nice clean edge, and it really does just finish off the piece. And of course these will look beautifully framed. I haven't got a frame here right at the moment in the studio, but if I can get my mitts on one, I will frame mine up and post a picture in our Facebook to show you. So take your time with this one. It's definitely going to ask time of you, this one, but it's quite a satisfying one once you pull all those different elements, from the background to the collage papers to making the birds to placing it all together. It will take you a few settings or a whole day of absolute immersion. So I hope you really enjoy this one. Do give us a shout if you get stuck, or if I haven't made anything super clear, as normal. And I can't wait to see what decisions you make and how you build your composition, what colours you might use, and if anybody's got a different set of birds to me. Anyway, have fun. Along with your paints and inks and coloured pencils and felt tip pens that you nick off the kids, your wax crayons, anything you can draw, write or paint with in terms of colour, gather all those bits together, and then these are the extra bits and pieces that I want you to gather together as well. So it's quite a sort of treasure hunt this month. First of all, just under here I've just got some cheap printer paper, some cheap sketchbook paper that you can rip out, would be really handy. A couple of scissors, different sizes would be useful. I've got things that make marks, so anything with a point or a clay shaper. I've even got a dip pen as well, and I might drag some paint with that. I've got a palette knife. I prefer that wider base palette knife because it mixes better. I've got things that can make circles, so tops of coffee pots, vitamin pots, tops of paint tubes. I've always got lots of those. And even in the top of like vitamin pots, you get these seals, don't you? And that actually might be a good transfer of a circle, or even a negative space saver as well. So things like that. Blister packs from tablets, vitamin tablets, or you know, pack of paracetamol or something like that will do. You try and get a couple of different shapes, maybe a stick for a bit of randomness and a bit of loose line work. Any sort of old brushes will do, any roller brushes, anything to scrape with. I think that's from the car originally. I've got a couple of rollers, I've got a really skinny roller. Usual brushes, thick, medium and small, just so I've got options there. I've got a spatula that once lived in the kitchen, a huge clay shaper, a window squeegee. I've got a tin of hairspray. You don't have to gather all of this together. This is just a bit of an example of the things that you can find in your house that might help with making marks, and also providing a bit of alchemy as we mix different materials together as well. So the hairspray and the Pritt stick are good for that sort of thing. Dispersing your paints with a spray bottle. And you will definitely need some of this. It's liquid mask and it's in a pot, and you can paint it on with a brush. It comes in like a creamy colour, a pinky colour, a yellow colour or a blue colour, and is relatively easy to find. And then I've got some plastic cling film, and I've got an old kitchen scrubber. I've got a wooden printing block here that I picked up in a second-hand shop, and it's really warped and cracked, and that's probably why it's in the second-hand shop, but it can give some nice textures. Don't have to have one of those, it's just I'm gathering what I've got so I can give you examples of the randomness of things that can make lots of different marks. We're after variety here. Kitchen towel, ideally with a pattern on it. Kitchen wipe that has a very sort of gentle perforation on it. That might be quite good. Collect gift bags, wrapping paper, decoupage paper, napkins, tissues, cake bags, newspapers, and then we'll need some posh A2 cartridge paper. And this one is 200 GSM and it's Daler Rowley. So that will hold the mixed medium, and that will hold our final artwork. But we'll start our collage using the cheap paper first of all. So, bit of a task list, probably day one of this project. If you can gather as much as that as you can together, you'll go around, you'll collect a few things, and you won't have looked hard enough. Go again and be creative with what can make marks and what you can paint with and stamp on. And of course you could be using some of your stencils as well. Okay, so I want to go about a third of the way up with this masking fluid. Try not to have any perfectly straight lines. And we're going to fan the tree out. Once you've got your tree branches on, you then want to pop in some leaves, and I'm just literally stamping with this angled flathead brush. I'm starting with the easy bits first, which are the ends of the branches, and working my way in as I get a sense of how many I want to describe. So make sure you've got your top screwed on super tight on your masking tape, and what you want to do is go and wash your brushes in hot soapy water, and it'll kind of go all sticky and coagulate, and it'll be like rubbing a rubber off your brushes, and you can get a bit of it out on your wet wipe while you're here. But to be on the safe side, so you don't ruin your brushes, go and give them a wash, and that gives this a chance to dry. You can speed the drying up with a hairdryer, but I find that it seals just the top skim of the liquid mask, and then when you go over with paint, you inadvertently blur it, and it gets really messy. So patience required here to let that dry. And it's probably, I don't know, ooh, I've got some thick blobby bits here and there that I was trying to avoid, but I've got them. So I would say that might take 20 minutes to dry, and I can sort of blot a few bits up, but I don't want to mess with it too much. So wash your brushes, have a cup of tea, scour about for all of your bits and pieces to get ready for the other stage of making the birds. And we're going to get out our cheap photocopier paper, printer paper, or old sketchbook paper, and we're going to use lots of that to make lots of different coloured textured paper. I've been working on the iPad collecting the sounds using the Merlin app, and the Merlin app kind of you can press record on it. I've got a screen grab for you, which I'll try and squeeze into part of this video. And as each bird in my garden comes up, I've been catching references of them and pulling out the colour palette for each one of them. And ideally, the collage papers that you're going to create are made up of these colours, and different values of these colours would be really helpful as well. So for example, if you have a yellow, you have a range from dark, mid and light yellow. If you have like a sienna, you need the dark, mid and light sienna, and that just really helps you out. Now obviously, in everything that you're scrummaging around the house for in terms of papers, you're not going to find the perfect fit, but these add a little bit of randomness to our collage. What we're going to do now is, with the cheap computer paper, printer paper, we're going to paint up each one of these colours, and some of them have colours in common, so we can double up quite easily that way. We're going to work through the colour palette and create a value scale of each colour palette that we can use, but we're also going to be very conscious of creating textures that might be super useful to help us describe what's going on with the feathers and the little spindly feet and the beady eyes, and see if we can get some nice work, some nice descriptions of textures doing that. So we don't need that liquid mask anymore. I'm just going to put this up to the side, and I'm gonna probably get a board underneath here and pull out some paint, some ink, some pencils. Okay, to the side of me, I've got a lot of things that I could find that are yellow, from acrylic ink to acrylic paint, both warm and cool varieties, pencils, wax crayons, felt pens, water pens, coloured pencils. I've also got some Pritt stick on hand, some hairspray, my water bottle. I've got my brushes out, my rollers, scrapers, stick, tops, blister packs, you know, everything we kind of gathered together earlier. You don't have to use everything, but what we want to do is create interesting textures, and we're just going to make an abstract yellow page full of, I'm going to try and do dark, medium and light to keep some sense to it, but I might go adrift at some point doing that. So easiest place to start is to grab a brush, swoosh it on, and we've got something that gets us going. I can immediately tell going dark, medium and light is going to be difficult for my unorganised brain. So, and I'm just going to have fun filling in the whole page with the palette of yellow. And I'm going to do this for each of the colours that we can see for the birds. So this is something that you could get away with doing in front of the telly, because you don't have to think too much about it, especially if you don't do dark, medium and light. But we definitely want to make sure we capture the dark, medium, light somewhere on here. So kind of just making different marks to get different textures, not thinking too much about it. Overlaying those yellows as well to see what comes up. And I might get a few of the wet bits down so I can blast it with the hairdryer. So I love doing this in the Pritt sketchbook as like a starting point before I go out sketching. Spray a bit of hairspray on, see if anything reacts to that. Kind of bubbles it up a little bit, gives you a different texture. Right, what can we do with a few of these? Catching the rim. Quite nice the way it's scratching back to the lighter yellow there. I like that. And of course we're going to get more effects when this paper dries and we can work on top. So the aim is to cover the paper totally in yellow. Let's get some cool yellow down. That should really pop against the other yellow, and it's quite translucent as well. Be super messy. And if you've got any hand sanitizer, you can use that as well, and that makes a lovely texture. I've got some in liquid form, which I'll show you in a second. Be a bit wet for the glue yet, actually. What haven't we tried? Yellow ochre, although that Indian yellow was similar. Oh, this is gold actually. That'd be nice if I can squeeze it out of the bottle. That's really nice on this page, a bit of gold. Try not just to fill in the gaps of the page, but also merge these colours over one another, just because some will be opaque, some will be translucent, and it will give you different effects. I'm going to give that a blast. Okay, I'm going to work over that with some of the drier material just to get some different descriptions. Still a little bit wet. And you've got in your mind's eye that you're after sort of feathery textures, but it doesn't matter too much at this stage. We can always add in detail later. Don't know if that's not gonna count as yellow, that one. What else have we got as a texture? I love these kitchen towels that have got these lovely patterns on, but we need a bit of wet paint for that, and I think the runny golden might just do it. So a bit of that. Let's roll that out. So, oh, look at that. So we get a nice effect. That might work as our brown as well. And then a bit drier down here. So this layering up is what builds your texture. It's going to take you a wee while going through all of those colours. And of course you can do more than one sheet. That gives like a little speckled texture. Those little sort of scrapers or clay shapers can be used to sort of pull back while something is still wet, especially if you've got a dark over a light. That works really well. And then what you can do is look through your pack of saved bits of paper and try and pick out what might go with these yellow tones. Got a few bits and pieces that might work. And then I've got a few black and white pieces that I could make yellow. Paint over yellow. So let's try that. So I'm gonna just take a bit of this, give it a blast. So this job is really good for when you feel like you can't think too much. I've lost my Pritt stick. You can't think too much, and you kind of just want to get something done. And if ever there's a day where my head isn't working to full speed, I can guarantee that I can get a background done, I can make up some collage paper, I can do all of these like prepping things which make life easier when it comes to making the art. you can overlap these things as well. May as well use that since I ripped it off. I'm breaking up that big patch of acrylic ink just a little bit. All right. Try and sort of vary with the bits I'm sticking on to have larger bits, smaller bits, just so I've got options when it comes to tearing it up later. And of course I could just rip the brown paper bag and stick it on the collage anyway, but I'm going to colour some of these because I know they've got different textures, different materials, so therefore they'll give me a different information in terms of the return of information. I'm quite liking this tissue paper as well. So this has got two uses of not only dabbing, giving us texture, but also being used again as applied texture. Maybe a bit of newspaper would be good. Remember, big and small. Right. So, back to adding more paint. And we can go over these things with that paint, bringing it into the value system of this particular colour. Acrylic's most useful because obviously we've probably got a stash of it somewhere, and it dries fast as well. See if I've got any lighter yellow oil pastels. Okay, I've got some gouache here with a few different yellows. Again, just a different application of paint. Gouache is super opaque, so you can see how that lemon yellow, which the lemon yellow in the acrylic would be quite transparent. looking into all of the materials that you've got. What little dashes we haven't had. Hello? So we'll let that dry, and we'll work through our other colours. So I'm going to peg this up and let it drip dry, and it might be that I need to make more, but I'm going to do a full set of colours first of all, and then match up what I've got left with the bits and pieces of gift wrapper, newspaper and napkins that I've got, and put them all into piles of colour. So pile of yellow, pile of blue, pile of black, and so on. So I will speed this process up so you get an idea of what I'm doing, but you don't have to sit through it all at normal speed. And if something interesting jumps out in terms of texture, I will slow down and flag it up for you. And I've just realised if I use the brown paper bag with different tones of white and cream and black and brown on a creased brown paper bag, you get some really lovely speckly textures, which I know I'll use quite a bit as well. So that is the full starting set. So 2, 4, 6, 7 to begin with. I suspect I might need more, but I'm not sure of which ones as yet. So we're going to refer to our bird sheet now and collage up some birds, and I reckon the robin, being one of the most visually recognisable birds, will be the easiest one to start with. So we kind of need all the colours here, and I'll get my papers down from the hanger in a second, but I just want to show you I've got a cutting mat out, I've got a couple of scissors, small and a large, and I'll get by fine just with scissors if that's all I've got. I do have some other things to hand, a few craft knives and a couple of smaller knives as well. This one has got a very small blade and the blade rotates, so it's quite good for going around and making circles, but can be quite fiddly. These are excellent. That can be a bit tricky sometimes, so I might put that to the side, and that looks like it's poked too many paint tubes, so I might put that to the side. So it looks like this will be my kit, but if you've just got scissors, you'll be absolutely fine. Right, I'm going to grab the collage papers. So I've got a clean sheet of printer paper, and I've got my collage papers here. I'm just going to give myself a little bit more room. This project, you'll need to tidy up as much as you can as you go, because you will get into a whole faff of what's where. So that's kind of my shape I'm working to. He's just got a little, as you come in on his neck, he's got a little dip there, and his breast comes out, of course. And feet splay. That scoops around, and it's quite handy if you draw this out so you can kind of work into that shape. So let's start with his tail with a bit of brown first of all. So brown sheet, move that to one side. And I want a sort of and this is where I'm cutting individual shapes out. Popping them to the side, and we're going to layer them up. So thin and thick shapes. And it's going to be fiddly, and it's going to take you a while, so you definitely are probably going to have to tranche this project over a few days. So I'm getting these like long oval shapes cut out, which are going to layer up as our feathers. Cut that bit out. And I quite like moving around the sheet just so I'm picking up those different tones of colour. I go over here. And I'm kind of looking at the shapes, sort of echoing the simple shapes first of all. So, for example, I'm going to have this coming out over his head, and I can see I've not got the curve right there, so then I can use that pencil template to work to. And I'm going to need my glue. And we're working on a piece of paper first of all, because the big sheet with the tree on might need a bit of jiggling around with where the birds actually land. So it's easier if we kind of make them a separate base, and then we can move them around and play with the composition. So you can see I'm layering those feather shapes up. There we go. Alright, I could do with like a bluey grey. And you can just rip rather than cut if you prefer to. And sometimes that gives you a more organic edge as well. And then onto the ready orange. I'm going to start with the lighter orange first of all. Oops. Everything ends up super sticky. So we need a little bit of beigey fluff. need a bit of light going up the chest. Bit of darker red kind of flashing over. Oops. Going to put a few flashes of lighter blue there, and it's these lighter and darker colours that will help you describe the shape of the bird. So use the reference, have the reference in front of you. There's a little slither of grey on the top of his head as well. Tiniest bit. Super fiddly, but makes all the difference once you get it on there. Kind of bend it around. Use your knife if you've got one to kind of arc it around, stick it into place, or chop the excess off if you need to. There we go. I'm lucky I'm making the paper. That doesn't matter because we're going to cut him out. Right, I need a bit of black. I've got purpley black or bluey black, and I think I'm going to go bluey black. Just need a slither for his beak. A bit long and a bit pointy. And there's like a grey highlight on top of that beak. And I'm going to cut that out because it's like a sharp highlight rather than a soft highlight. And again, it's a slither. You can hear a bit of screw noise going on, a bit of drill noise going on. It's Mo fixing my decking outside. And then we need a little round black eye. So if we just move this to the side, I'll show you that little swivel knife. Beady black eye. And it's almost like you can draw a circle much easier with this. And then pop it out. And then lose it. Oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go? I've lost his beady eye. Go again. Disappeared. Top side is curvier. Just poke it in with it's not forthcoming, is it? Oh, you're joking, I've lost it again. Third time lucky. Quick, stick it down. And then just slide it into position. Scrape off any excess glue. Right, we need some skinny legs. So they're quite orangey. So I'm going to chunk off a bit like that. And then slither 2 pieces. Stick it down. Now, just want to shape the pointy foot. You might break the paper, but you can then crease it around into a bit of a shape then. And ideally we want that leg a wee bit thinner. So rather than try and make that thinner, I'm going to go again. Just picking up that fluff at the bottom so I can slide this leg in and then kind of bend that one into shape as well, and chop at the toe. You can use another bit for his other toe, claw. It's a bit of a stubby claw, that one. Don't know if I like that. I prefer that one. Of course, it's smaller. It's better. Just think I could do with a little slither of dark red there as well, curving around that lower part of the chest. Right, I just need some beigey coloured feathers over that. Not much. There we are. So now you can get some colour pencils relating to your colours to bring out a little bit of detail. So let's have a look. I've got a red here. Helping me shade in there, maybe give a bit of shadow under the chin. actually picking up a bit of green, like an olivey green, just to bring in a bit of shade on that soft beige. And I want a light blue, could be grey. See how it lands. It's not sticking. There we go. What we can do now is cut him out. Make the leg skinnier at this point. do with just a little highlight. Things I find that are good for highlights are sometimes Tipp-Ex pens, sometimes these acrylic markers, sometimes these if they still work, and Neocolor too are quite good, but a bit chunky for what we're doing. So I'm gonna see if I can get this. Can't get that working. Sometimes it's a case of whatever you can get working on the day. There we go. Oh, maybe a bit big, but I can make that a bit smaller later. Okay, so we've got a robin. I reckon we'll go for the blackbird next. I'm quite fancying using some of this along with a bit of bluey black and a bit of purpley black. And as I do this, I'm just going to speed myself up. I'm probably going to use more purpley black, I think. I'm going to speed myself up. Oh, I've got some of that on there. I'm going to speed myself up, and I'll put some lovely music on rather than the drilling sound of Mr. Morris fixing the decking. So we've got a blackbird and a robin so far. On my list at the moment, unless I spot any more birds, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So that's going to take us a while to build up all of those little characters. Was it that one I was using? It was, wasn't it? So I'm going to interchange some of that activity with sorting out the background, and just do with just a bit of detail. And there might be more detail a bit later. So there's 2 so far. Been drying for about half an hour, 40 minutes now, and I can tell even by touching the blobby bits that it's solidified, it's stuck, so there won't be smudging as I paint over it. So I'm going to use up 2 of my emulsion tester pots, and I'm going to mix in the colours. One's overtly olive and one's melon sorbet, and I might have to take them apart to get all of it out. Ooh. And as this one's a bit lighter, I'm going to start that in the middle. Ooh. Got a damp brush and I'm just working my way, kind of like circling out from the centre, wafting up and out and down, and kind of stretching the paint to see how far that will go. like a yellowy green. And then the other colour in the corners. Now you could choose some acrylic paint, some gouache paint, you could get some tester pots. You could have a blue background. But I'm kind of calling in spring here with the green. Even though it's not fresh, lush green, it's a bit more of a desaturated green. Can you see how that darker green is kind of giving like a halo effect to the tree? Go. Now this emulsion paint dries pretty quick, so I can work with the rubber on top of the masking fluid, and a really satisfying job. You'll want to use masking fluid for everything now. So rub quite gently because you don't want to rip it off. Just give that a tap off. And then we have our tree. I quite like the way it's gone through some of the masking fluid. It's almost like screen print. So the idea being that we're going to make some larger than life birds which make up the collection of birds in our garden, our favourite walk. And it's probably best that we make all of the birds first of all, so we can play around with the balance and the composition, but this kind of gives you an idea of how it's building. And dependent on how busy it looks with all the birds, the tree might not need any more work. Keep seeing extra bits of masking tape. So we'll read that as we go. But I'm really pleased with this emulsion on this paper. It's given it like a desaturated, chalky effect, and the birds are quite vibrant and bright, so they stand on top of and in front of. So that's worked really well. So really now it's cracking on with the rest of the birds.